Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Zwift Academy circuit race out on the Innsbruckring. We'll be doing 4 laps of the Innsbruckring today for the Team Dimension Data and the Canyon SRAM Zwift Academy races. Now, this counts toward one of your 2 races that you need to complete if you are a part of the Zwift Academy. A little bit of information about the Zwift Academy. Thousands get fit, 1 goes pro, in partnership with Team Dimension Data as well as the Canyon SRAM Pro Teams. This is a groundbreaking training camp that's taking place, a talent ID program where people compete in Zwift in order to try and grab that pro contract at the end. Whichever rider amongst the 10 finalists and then 3 finalists that ends up going to a training camp with the pro teams, whichever one ends up being the best fit for the team gets a pro contract. Pretty awesome program. We do have in the pens over in the men's race, it looks like a few riders lining up, a few in the women's as well, with about 45 seconds to go to the start of the race. We also got a little bit of race information, I believe, out there for what we have in store. And the route details, they're going to be doing 4 laps of this 8.7 kilometers, 77 meters of climbing each lap, 21 miles or 35 kilometers total. Use any equipment that you want to. So riders are going to be grabbing probably the fastest bike that they possibly can. Maybe not so much toward climbing, though, as there are a couple of bikes out there that are better climbers. So I'm expecting to see a lot of Tron bikes for those who do have them. So we're going to be looking for the favorites out here. I think as far as the race goes, this one's going to be all about showing what kind of tactical racer you might be, as well as what kind of big power outputs you're able to put out for short periods of time. Circuit racing is definitely a part of the talents that you need for circuit racing is definitely a part of racing in the pro peloton. So it's going to be interesting to see. Go ahead and see if we can jump right on into this and see where things are going to be for the start of the men's and the women's race. For the Zwift Academy circuit race out here, out on the Innsbruckring. Right from the get-go, though, usual, we do have a pretty fast start up into the orange numbers, and it does look like we do have Jay White here up toward the front of the men's race, 5.3 watts per kilogram right now, as you can see. Mulcher from the BRT team off the front a little bit here. Now, you do see that there are a lot of categories on the right-hand side of the screen there. It is A, B, and C and D categories that can jump into the race. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the categorization, the ability to race with people around your level from all over the world is what that's all about. In the D category, riders who are able to hold up to 2.5 watts per kilogram for 1 hour straight, or for their FTP, their functional threshold power, that's going to be a D category rider. For those in the C category, it's going to be 2.5 to 3.2 watts per kilogram for an FTP, functional threshold power. For the B category, it's 3.2 to 4.0, and in the A category, it's 4.0 or higher. You do see that they're all mixed together, though, today when it comes to the riders starting. It's not a staggered start, so all the categories start together. So if you can hang on and you end up being amongst the A's, you can kind of see whether or not you can hang on there if you need an upgrade, or maybe you get dropped off completely and you're way under on your average power, which you can check out over at zwiftpower.com after the race. Also, you can see your average as well in the results immediately after races when you cross. But if you do, well, the staggered start is not a part of it today. And as you can see, we do have all kinds of riders mixed together at the front end of the race. B, A, C, D category riders even up in there. So, but it does look like as they're heading on over toward the first challenging parts out on course here, we do have an initial group forming. About, looks like 16, actually 20 riders at this point. 20 riders up toward the front there. Lots of them using their arrow power-ups already. For those who are not familiar with power-ups, they are in-game. Looks like a few have collected some. And it does, the power-ups do give you slight advantages at times over other riders. You're able to collect those by simply going underneath a KOM banner, a sprint banner, start-finish line banner, lap banner. As you can see, the arrow power-up that's being used there improves your aerodynamics for 30 seconds straight if you do use that. So it's a little bit of a tactical advantage. I like to say that it's comparable to some of the tactics that you can use in real life, actually, because there are all kinds of RNG or random number games that are played in nature out in real life, actually, where you do get advantages over other riders in a pack or peloton, simply from crosswinds or other things that might come on in. So looking through here now, we are seeing it is going to be this lead group of 20 though, and nobody really looking like they want to make any attacks. It looks like they're fairly quiet at this point. A little bit of what we like to call holding hands. You know, it is a 4-lap race, so with it being a 4-lap race, I think some of the riders, now that they have made the lead group, are just holding a few of their matches to trying to keep things under wraps at this point and not take off right from the get-go, not use too much energy right off the bat. Now, from the women's side of things, though, this is interesting to see, actually. We actually have up toward the front of the race right now, Claudia Baring, I'm seeing, from Team Draft, one of the fastest women out on Zwift that we know of. She has participated in the CVR World Cup at a very high level, definitely taken some podium at the CVR World Cup before. We are also seeing, it looks like Gallagher up there from the CIS Cycling there, and then it's going to be Portela, group of 3 off the front now at this point. I Yote there as well, 20 seconds back. Group of, it looks like 4 riders now on the back end of this race now at this point. So Ayot, Q, it looks like they're Bell, and then it will be Athens here coming out of Australia trying to make that chase, but with such a strong group up toward the front there, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult to try and bring that back. But 23 seconds now I'm seeing is the gap up to, it looked like Portela at the moment. She was trying to go off the front for just a second, but doesn't look like that's going to be happening anytime soon. Coming out of the USA, we do have 3 USA flags off the front here now, it looks like, and it makes a lot of sense though, being a North American broadcast that we're trying to focus on for this time right now. Now, if you do want to interact with the broadcast, you can do so. We are watching the chat over on Mixer, as we do get a quick little timeout there for a little bit of somebody. There you go, buddy. Appreciate the chat, but we'll give that one a timeout. But we also do see all of the chat coming in over at Facebook on the Zwift Facebook page. If you do want to interact there, we can bring in any of your comments. Harry Sliff saying that Innsbruck is tough. I got passed by a runner on the 12% gradient. Now, the Innsbruck, especially the big climb out there, it's 20 to 30 minute climb. I mean, that is one of the toughest climbs in the world of Zwift. But we also have this kicker on the Innsbruckring that takes about 30 seconds to a minute, I think, to climb. And it definitely is a wall of a climb. And that is kind of the equalizer out on this course. So I'd definitely be watching out for that to be the next place that these riders try and take a little bit of a shot at each other. Probably not going to see too much action until that point. But when we do hit that point, it's going to be gloves off, I believe, for this pack of 3 for the women, and then as well and then we do have this pack of 4 with this chase as well. And we might actually see, I might predict somebody who fell off the back in this chase group for the women. We might actually see a situation where one of them that might have that kind of effort to bridge might try and do so. Now, if there are attacks though with that front group early on at this point, which if there are with only 3 in there, it'll be really interesting, because the reality is to try and get away at this point with how much racing that is left, we might not see that actually take place. So we'll have to see if they are able to hold off tactically that chase group of 4, because if you get away right now, you're solo for quite a long time. You know, we're probably looking at a little bit of an hour of racing here, so it's going to be a difficult, very difficult situation if they do find themselves at the front. So there is an opportunity here for Bell, Athens, as well as Q and A out there, as you do see just a little ways back, about 30 seconds to maybe close something down and make something happen here for the women. Now back into the men's racing though, I do see up at the front end of the Team Dimension data race, it does look like we do have so it does look like we do have Windsor here right now up toward the front, and then Matt Johnson from ODZ now making an attack up in this 6.1 watts per kilogram, as you can see, 6.5, 8.6 here coming from Uchi. Now we said that this was going to be the moment of truth for these riders, especially early on this first lap. They are with such a large group, 20 plus riders. They're going to try and break this up every single lap until it whittles down a little bit more. 1 out of 20, not great chances into a sprint situation. It looks like with a 2-second gap now, Uchi here now getting off the front out of Japan. Weeman ATX there out of the US of A, followed by Jay White coming out of Canada. Then we do have Goulet there too from Velocity. Johnson, ODZ, well-known racer out on Zwift from that team ODZ, trying to hang out with this group. I think there isn't going to be any attacks to try and get away from this. If these 5 riders actually, with 2 on the back there, actually now we're looking at 3 more making the gap up there. I don't think they're going to be attacking too hard. I think they're going to allow Uchi here to get away a little ways, let him dangle out there, and then close it down with the reality of the draft in a pack. But it does look like the Japanese are showing up for a serious attack, though, and trying to get away because he's holding that solid 4.8 watts per kilogram on the front end of this pack right now. 6 seconds to continue to go out. We'll see if this can hold, as the rider solo on the front here is looking for a TT effort, perhaps, or maybe waiting for one rider to come across, but without a lot of motivation and not a lot of time on that gap at this point. A lot of these riders will say, you know, what's the point? I'm not sure that this is going to stick, so perhaps we're just going to have to sit and wait, pull this back in, and this will be our lead group. Now, Keffer here along with Baba now, they got their work cut out for them. They can close this down, 173 beats per minute, most likely up and over threshold, as we're seeing that heart rate drift way out there for Keffer. Richards is there as well, coming right on through. Now an arrow power up, though, coming from, it looks like, Dowling here now, 4.0 watts per kilogram. He's going to be catching back up to the other 2 B riders up there, and it's going to be about a 20-second gap they're going to be looking to close, but it looks like it's all back together just about here, as Uchi is not giving up the ghost just yet, still kicking a little bit, and then comes right back into the pack. So it looks like the 2 Canadians on the front here, Labelle, Goulet now out of Velocity. We'll see if they have any plans actually to be working together. Labelle, though, without a heart rate monitor on, be interesting to see if he's able to put one back on before, or have one on before the end of the race, because race rules do state with ZwiftPower.com not able to win a race officially without that heart rate monitor on. So it does look like things are cooling down a little bit. Just a steady pull at the front there with Jay White and Johnson there, 4.0 watts per kilogram. Find later from, it looks like Windsor here now, Windsor Door. What is this name? Windsor Door Racing. That's what it is. There we go. It's cycling through, and coming out of the UK late night or very early morning, perhaps, unless he's racing here in the US of A underneath the UK flag, or somewhere over here in the other side of the world. So looking back a little ways, though, we do have a C rider that made it in here. Maybe a little bit of an upgrade in needed here for, it looks like, Rhaegar, or maybe just hanging on by his fingernails at this point, clawing his way back in, as we can see. But Dowling here now, 7.1 watts per kilogram on a full-on attack, maybe caught off guard, it looks like, with the kind of power that he does have, but it is so difficult to close this kind of a gap down. And since he is doing it, I would actually say if he rests up early on here after closing this gap down, if he can, 3 seconds can feel like forever, but if he can close this down, it'll be interesting to see, because this kind of an effort might show that this rider has a definite ability to take the win out here today. So I'll be watching out for Dowling. That's a prediction for me here. He's going to rest up, get some reprieve as he sits in the draft, and then maybe look for him for some serious attacks later on in the race. We do see him going down to 0 watts per kilogram for a moment there, and just going to sit in, slide in there, and that makes it a lead group, it looks like, of 10 riders now for the W out here. So good to see a strong group up toward the front here. The chase group does hold Nomura, Baba. Rivera's there as well. T Zwift is up in here. It looks like we'll give T Zwift a ride on there with a little play on words. C Richards is there as well. And Keffer has made this group. We did see him earlier. Actually, this is a large group of riders that's starting to form here. The main peloton, I would say, for the chase, looks like it's about maybe 12 riders that have made this chase group, but it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of motivation to close down the gap up front, up ahead. A lot of times, you know, with the attacks that you do see up and over the top of those climbs and the effort that's put out there, they're just looking for some reprieve because they know what's coming next. They're pretty sure at this point they're not going to be able to handle the attacks from those front riders, so a lot of times they just let that go. And as we do see Jay White holding a steady 4.5 at the front here at 153 beats per minute. These boys at the front are definitely not slowing down. Just about to finish up their first lap, though, of 4 out on this circuit race out here today. First place currently being held down by Jay White. Now, there's there's nothing super special about coming across first, but it looks like he is making a little bit of attack here for the lap. So interesting to see. As we are looking at the finish line, there will be there's the group of riders as they do come through. It looks like Jay White, Kay LaBelle here, as well as Norman. Now just going to look to close this down, but this is a pretty serious attack at this point. And the riders, it looks like, maybe under a little bit of distress because nobody seems super interested to close this down. Actually, I think they just don't think it's going to stick, and that White's going to come right back in. He's not holding anything over 5.0 for this attack, so just 2 seconds off the front, maybe showing off a little bit for the start-finish line there. So good to see that he's holding steady, though. Now at about 4.2 watts per kilogram. Goulet now is going to close it right on down, and that attack is done. Now, Dowling called him out earlier as maybe somebody to watch out for. Looked like there's a little bit of frustration coming from the rider as he definitely got dropped off early on and showed himself to be somebody to be reckoned with, because closing down a gap like that it was out to 30 seconds at one point, and he came right on back to this lead group. So, again, I'd be watching out for Dowling. Back in with the women, though, we do see that Portela here, along with Bering, they've actually been able to grab this 50-second gap. It looks like that took place probably up and over the top of the climb. And they're about to come through the start-finish line in just a moment here. It does look like 53 seconds, though, back to Ayotte and Gallagher. So it was a group of three, which is interesting to see what's going on here. There was a bridge that took place from, I believe it was Ayotte, that was able to close that down. And they were all together there. But now as we do look through, there goes Portela and Bering. Portela's the first one to come across the line, it looks there, leading things out, 4.1 watts per kilogram. And then behind them, it is going to be Gallagher from CIS and Ayotte. They're coming out of Canada, riding unattached now. 3 more laps to go. Claudia's letting everybody know. So good to see Bering here looking steady, able to type during the efforts even at this point. So Claudia Bering, 147 beats per minute currently. We'll go ahead and give her a ride on, and then it's going to be Portela here currently sitting, it looks like, at a 164 or so. So good to see the riders pretty steady at this point. It'd be interesting to see what kind of efforts are going to put them in any kind of distress. I'm sure that Claudia is just sitting on at this point, keeping it real cool with that super low heart rate. We haven't seen any kind of drift from it so far at this point. So, again, very experienced rider. Coming from that team Draft, very well-known racing team out on Zwift. And Claudia Bering actually, I believe, is the Zwift national champion for the US of A right now. Draft actually holding down both of those, both on the men and the women's side, with Adam Zimmerman holding down the men's national championship jersey out on Zwift right now. So definitely be watching out for that national champion. She's the favorite, I would say, out here with Portela. But Portela taking the brunt of the work with 4.2 watts per kilogram on the front of the race right now. Bering just sitting in and waiting to pounce, I believe. I'm not sure the attack was too intense, though, up and over the top of the climb. You know, ZwiftPower.com actually have some great resources about that. They've added all of these very cool data analytics for the races where you can see where the main attacks were taking place out on course, actually, and see the numbers that are, you know, the main places where the riders were actually on the full-on attack and what kind of numbers they're putting down on each part of the course. It's very cool updates that they've been including lately. So it does look like on the women's side, though, it is still going to be, as I look through here on ZwiftPower.com, a lot of women that still need to enter actually into, or opt in still actually to the ZwiftPower.com over on my.zwift.com. So if you haven't done that yet, make sure to do so because most of the results are going to be, for all the racing out on Zwift, are going to be tracked over at ZwiftPower.com. So head on over to your my.zwift.com or just log in over at Zwift.com and make sure to check your connections. And if you are going to be racing a lot and you want to be able to track your results over there, make sure to opt in over there for your data to be shared. And you're going to be able to be tracked for all of the race results. So Bering here still sitting in 3.1, 3.3 watts per kilogram. calmer point out on in the race at this point. It looks like, again, I think this is going to be the usual that we see on this circuit. It's going to be pretty calm, not a whole lot of action, followed up by crazy fireworks every lap for the climb, up and over the top of that little kicker that we see each lap now. But now the negative 3% grading, we just see the speeds come up to 46 kilometers per hour now. Portela still taking the brunt of the work as Behring just sitting in, playing it smart. Not a whole lot to worry about behind her, as we are seeing Gallagher here, it looks like, with Ayotte not really closing things down, letting things go out actually as they rest up, waiting for their next time. It doesn't look like they're under threat either, as we do have Q and Athens there. A little ways back, 42 seconds, and then 56 seconds for Athens there at about 2.5 watts per kilogram. So nice little gap there between the riders still, as we do see Athens here now getting a ride on with 2.4 watts per kilogram now, about 16 seconds back. Bell there now 6 seconds back from her, as you can see, 2.8 watts per kilogram, as well as Armand now. A little bit of a group now forming there behind, trying to chase things down. Still anybody's race, it looks like, here between the three riders that are, well, the 1, 2, 3 we're seeing, yeah, about 4 riders actually for that third place, as we do see Q, Athens, Mond, and Bell all within about 25 seconds of each other at this point. It does look like up front, though, Gallagher on a little bit of attack, it looked like, for a second there, but wasn't able to get any distance between herself and Ayotte there. So it looks like still going to be all the same here at this point, with these two on the front there with Behring and Portela. Still taking the brunt of the work will be Portela all day long, with Behring there sitting in. Back in with the men, though, we are going to be seeing the attacks again in just a moment. And it does look like Jay White now, 4.6 watts per kilogram, still on the front. He's been doing a lot of work, it looks like, always up to the front. Doesn't want to find himself toward the back, though, at this point, because this is when it matters the most. If you find yourself at the back, that 1, 2, 3, 4 meters or so is definitely going to hurt if you have to make it up on the climb, because when the numbers start to ride, really start to go up, start to see those orange numbers, we start to see the real power start to come from the legs. Closing down meters at that point is the most difficult thing. So being positioned well is so incredibly important out on Zwift. We do see Golette here, Velocity now on the attack, first one to go, not really getting a lot of space though between himself and the other riders. We are seeing 7 watts per kilogram currently from him. A little bit of a gap, as we can see here, though. It's not quite out, I think, to 10 meters though. It is definitely a draft there still. If he doesn't gain any more distance, most likely not going to be going anywhere. We do see Norman here, though, falling off the back there, 102 RPM. We'll give him a ride on. No heart rate monitor, so we can't see how much the suffering is quite there, but Dowling there, just sitting on the back. He was a rider that did close things down very quickly. Looks like he's just biding his time. I don't think he's super interested in any real attacks at this point. Maybe waiting for the later times in the race to make anything real happen at this point. But Dowling here now, 5.2. LaBelle was off the back a little bit there. Now has the kick in the orange numbers, able to close it right on down, but there goes Norman. Another one bites the dust off the back there at 0 watts per kilogram. Full on nuclear at this point. And he may be waiting up for Baba and Richards, but make sure you finish it up. If you do get dropped off at any point, make sure you do finish the race. Just not having a good day, make sure you try and finish whatever you enter, because it still counts towards the 2 races you do need to complete for the Zwift Academy. And again, for those of you unfamiliar, there are, with the Zwift Academy, 3 different kinds of races you can do. You have to finish 2 of them. And circuit race, the TT, and then there's also the climb race out on the Innsbruckring. Now, here's the thing about these. It's kind of all about showing off your talent, actually, comparatively between the different disciplines. So today, it's going to be all about the punchy efforts that you see in crit racing. That's what this is. This today is all about, with the corners, the climb, and the tactics that it takes to sit in and wait for the right moment and get that W, and put out. I think a lot of times when they look at these races, it's going to be all about those who are able to have a low cardiac drift throughout the race, on top of a really, really high power output when it comes time to sprint, when it comes time to close down gaps, when it comes time to be tactical. And are you the one to close it down and be the ruler? If somebody does get away, you're the one that tends to close down those gaps and take down the charge to lead the pack, to maybe bring that back. You know, you're able to show off different kind of talents during circuit races like this. But we do see LaBelle here trying to show off a little bit of talent. Now 5.5 on the front. And interesting the way he's going about this, is it's not a full-on off-the-front attack, but rather more of a 5.5, just steady on the front FTP kind of thing. And if anybody's really hurting right now, that might do something to this pack. I'd be surprised if this breaks it apart. Usually with the likes of Matt Johnson in here, Uchi, who we saw earlier, go full on into the 8 watts per kilogram. I think there's plenty of firepower here to bring that back. So I don't think it's any kind of spot of bother for any of them. I don't think anyone's hurting too bad. I think they just knew it was coming right on back, and they didn't want to waste too much energy. So they just kind of allowed him to go off the front a little bit and then let the tempo do its work as it needed to. So, and it looks like we got a couple of comments coming on through. Joseph Cooley, good to see you hanging out in the broadcast. And he's coming out of Arizona. Good to see you there. We also see David Torello coming in saying, "Go Bears." Go Bear. Now, are you coming out of Chicago then? I'm assuming that's because of the Windy City, but good to see you there, David, as well, tuning in to the broadcast now. So, again, Dowling on this section of the course seems to be strong always. You know, showing off a little bit. I mean, he's on the front end of the pack here, but seems to always come through fairly strongly at this point. I have a feeling we're going to be, again, I keep on saying it, but I think it's going to come down, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far for the work being done and the tactics being played. Matt Johnson and Dowling is my prediction as far as the head-to-head race. Maybe Weeman as well as Goulet, Jay White might be able to upset. Perhaps it'll be a lower category rider, somebody who's registered for the B category that happened to make it into this front-end group. We do have find later here coming from Windsor Racing. So Windsor Door Racing. We'll see if perhaps these riders are actually A category riders. So, go Bearing. David Torello is saying over at the Zwift Facebook comments though. So saying go Bear. Speaking of Claudia Bearing. So go Claudia Bearing. He's letting us know there. What camera feature is that we're getting from David Torello? That is super special camera features just for you guys there, David. So we do have Pertella there up at the front now. Let's jump back into the women's race. And it looks like, speaking of Bearing and Pertella, they're about to climb a little bit here. And it does look like their gap just continues to open up. 3.8 watts per kilogram. Pertella still doing most of the work, as we're seeing. Bearing here sitting in 3.9, 2.9. Not too much of an effort there having to be taken out. Now, we are seeing a little bit of a drift, though. Claudia is up into that 157 beats per minute so far. So she was all the way down in the 132, 140 or so. But after going up onto the top of that climb, it does look like it has come up a little bit, and it's becoming a little more difficult. A little more difficult to actually sit on to the wheel of Pertella. So interesting to see. We'll see if that continues to rise. But we are seeing a drift actually a lot right now, almost up in the 160s here coming from Bearing. So as we do see the race go on, usually the drift does go out as the resources in the body do start to get used up. Looking back a little bit, though, Ayot here was able to break away on the climb, as you do see here as she comes down on the other side of it. 57 seconds now, it looks like, between herself and Gallagher. Huge gap opened up between Ayot and Gallagher now. At 59 seconds, it looks like Gallagher going backwards. Gallagher was a part of the initial break, actually, out here, and has maybe burned a couple too many matches. So Gallagher now 103 back from the rider we're looking at now, Ayot. And then it will be Mond here about 10 seconds back from Gallagher. And Q there 12 seconds right along with him. So Mond, Q, chasing down Gallagher. I have a feeling that this is all going to come together between Gallagher, Mond, and Q actually behind now. So 321 though is the gap up to them from that chase group. So as we are seeing, it looks like Q there, about 2.0 watts per kilogram currently, 147 beats per minute. Not a whole lot of effort there coming from that rider, but now it's going to be Mond and Q working together to bring back Gallagher, maybe a group of 3 that will form to make a chase. I don't think they're going to see Ayot again. We'll have to see, though. 2 minutes and a lot of racing left to go. You know, it's still going to be about 2 laps to go. So going to be interesting to see if they can close that down. If they do work together well. Ayotte is solo at this point, but is able to hold a solid 3.1 watts per kilogram. So it'll be interesting to see if this rider does hold off the rest of the riders, or if she's burned too many matches as well. But she was able to drop off Gallagher. We'll see if she does suffer for that later as the riders do try and bring this back. All right, we're looking through here. It looks like a couple of comments coming on through. James McGarren says, "Go Nathan." Thanks, I appreciate it. But we're cheering on the riders out here today. I appreciate that very much, though, James. Chris Abramo Min saying, "So in Zwift races, we have a duck, a lion, a python, and a bear." And from what David's saying, there's a boar, a wolf, and a fox, too. And we were watching Matt Brandt from Team Draft earlier, actually. He is, from what I hear, the wolf out there. And Carissa needs an animal alter ego. And chat, let us know who Carissa should be. Please let us know what's the alter ego for Carissa. Back into the men's racing, though. We are coming into, I believe, the second lap now at this point. And it is White and Weeman here. Now, Weeman, we haven't seen a whole lot from him. ATX for quite a while, actually. He's been sitting in pretty tactical so far. Now taking up the charge at the front. This is interesting to see. Perhaps been sitting as a little bit of a wild card in here. Dark Horse, we'll have to see if he makes any attacks. It does look like we did get a little bit of a calling here, as it does have only 7 riders in this front group. It is Norman here, 56 seconds back or so. It does look like Windsor actually, as we are getting a little bit of time differences here that are a little bit odd out on course there. So it does look like that is all still together, but 7 riders here up toward the front now. LaBelle making his way to the front. White keeps on taking these poles toward the front at this section of the course. It seems like each one of the riders kind of likes their own spot on the course that they feel good, that they tend to take a couple of the take the headwind for the rest of the group, actually. So it does look like the orange jersey is on LaBelle for the fastest lap currently out on this course right now. LaBelle 4.4 watts per kilogram. Goulet there now, as you can see, 3.1. No heart rate on Goulet. LaBelle as well. So they're not going to be actually win the race officially. So Jay White here, not going to have to worry about them too much. Dowling here, 155 as well as White, right in that 150s. Matt Johnson, ODZ down to 127. This is a rider we've seen sprint many times out on Zwift. And if he can hang on to the end of this race and get in on that sprint, I'd be watching out for Matt Johnson, actually, to take the W out here. Now, it does look like he has chosen to take on this race today without the Tron bike. He's on the Cervelo, it looks like. Are those the which wheels is he on there? I believe he is on the Trek SL wheels. I don't think those are the Meilensteins, because those are a little bit deeper dish, I believe. So choosing the Cervelo there, S5, along with I believe that is the Bontrager SL wheels. But I can't first say that for sure, actually, because they're spinning a little bit too fast for me to pick up on that, though. Looking through here, David Torello says, opens a can of worms. I don't know if a can of worms is exactly the alter ego that Carissa was looking for there, David. So, as I did open up a can of worms. So, and good to see over at Mixer as well. Good to see Carissa hanging over there, holding down the admin, as well as Jojo Dog saying hello. For you guys who have not checked out yet, you can watch any day that we are live, anytime that we are live. We are live over on streaming platforms as well as VODs over on YouTube. So we are live currently over on Twitch as well as Mixer, and then our VODs are all on the YouTube. Now, it does look like we are looking at some of the wheels that are currently being used out here. It does look like currently the rider that we're looking at is using the Zwift carbon disc wheels, actually. Is that correct, that we actually, Matt Johnson's on a disc wheel at this point? I'd be super surprised as I'm not seeing the disc spinning there in the middle of that wheel, but perhaps that is what's going on here, and it's just hard to see while the riders are going along. But from what we're looking at here, there is the speed as well as the weight. Only 2 stars on each of those, that is their ability that they give to the rider out there. So maybe Matt not holding on to a Tron bike currently. We'll have to wait and see If we can ask him after the broadcast or sometime during the broadcast, he could jump into the socials here and let us know why he made that pick, because I'd be really surprised if Matt Johnson does not have the Tron bike out there. So we are looking at Jay White here, 5.9 watts per kilogram up toward the front. This is another moment of truth for the riders here. 8% gradient, as you can see, and the attack here from Johnson now, 5.9 watts per kilogram, but it's not into the orange numbers. It is Goulet here now from Velocity, and then it will be fine later here coming from that Windsor Door Racing. Weeman now 6.6 watts per kilogram. Jay White now, it looks like 6.4, but the gap is opening up. Johnson on the attack, 6 watts per kilogram. We're not seeing 7 or 8 this time through. The riders look to be getting a little bit more tired or perhaps holding back. I think the attack is going to be full on up into 8, 9 watts per kilogram for the win, actually. Later on in the race, there is the description there for everybody on the lightweight earlier. For those of you who might be wondering, it does actually lower the weight of the rider for 30 seconds, actually. I believe it's 15 seconds, actually, on the feather power-up, but maybe I'm wrong about that. I always thought it was shorter. I always felt shorter for the riders there. But 2.5 watts per kilogram here for LaBelle. Windsor Door Racing sitting on at 3.1. Nobody really able to drop anybody off at this point. Norman here holding steady at that 1 minute, but that's going to go out because of the climb and then down into the downhill. I wouldn't be surprised if it opens up all the way to about 2 or 3 minutes by the end of this little section here. So still all together there with about 7 riders in here together. And looking through, it looks like another attack now from White. Not serious, though. Maybe just keeping things steady at the front, not letting anybody come around at this point. A lot of times for the riders, it is all about positioning, as you see the little bit of a kicks, because you do get a little bit nervous as you end up at the back of groups like this. You want to be able to follow anything that might come your way. So Jay White, 2.7. Heart rate starting to fall. I think we're going to see some hand holding. We're going to be going into the last lap in a moment here. And I believe we are going to have an under an hour race actually here. These boys are absolutely fine. 32 miles per hour you're seeing here up on the screen. 15 miles in, as you can see. And 722 feet of climbing so far. Now, Goulet here letting us know that he's not going to be holding hands. Up into 1,000 watts, actually. 106 RPM. Goulet here trying to get away. Opens up an immediate gap. Now, LaBelle saying, okay, I'll go lighter along with that. No, maybe not. That was a little too much. Down to 5.7. And now, here's the thing. In these situations, if you want to go with this kind of attack, you attack the same. You know, if you want to just pull that back in and that's all you want to do and you want to take your chances with the sprint, then you do what you see is happening on the front here. You just hold a steady threshold to over threshold pace, but you do not attack full on. So now we are seeing, it looks like that is exactly what LaBelle is doing, and it is very interested in the whole pack being back together rather than attacking, getting on that wheel, and then working together with the rider that has gotten away. If you want to form a breakout on Zwift, it's all about orange number attacks, full-on sprints, just like in real life. When you see the peloton break early on in a stage, a lot of times you'll see full-on attacks into the sprint efforts, way over threshold, over VO2 max even, and then the gaps will open up. Another rider will go, then they'll start working together without anybody drafting on them. At this point, with the tactic on the front to here, though, we're simply going to see the pack pull them back in as steady pace. That's not going to do too much. Johnson actually not too interested in that, though, as we are seeing. He is definitely interested in forming a break here, down to that 143 beats per minute, so he definitely has the power to work with. 9 watts per kilogram. White there, not able to respond to the orange numbers. As you can see here, Johnson's going to hold 7 watts per kilogram as long as he possibly can. Close it down quickly. There's nobody drafting him at this point at all. So without that draft on him, he's completely safe at this point, just to close things down, not drag anybody with him. If anybody wants to go with him, they got to burn the exact same matches. Exact same matches that he just burned, meaning that he is not wasting any effort because he is forcing the other riders that are chasing him down to burn that same effort. Now, here's the thing. If LaBelle just does the work and they draft on him, though, there's a reality that the other riders behind aren't wasting any effort. So doesn't look like LaBelle's doing that, though. He is not giving a draft. Dowling here, going to have to close it down now, I think. Now this has completely put a lot of these riders on the back foot as Dowling finds himself 2 seconds back from Johnson and LaBelle and Goulet, who's off the front there just a little bit. It looks like 3 riders now forming up. Are they going to be able to keep this together, though, and get away? It doesn't look like it. It looks like Weeman's going to get a free ride right along with Windsor and Dowling. to come right back together. But it's still not said and done, as you do see them echeloned out one long straight line. We could see the counterattack coming through the start-finish line here in just a moment. We'll have to see if that does work out, actually, as we are looking here at, it looks like the Weeman, Findlater, and LaBelle all able to close that down. White at the front end of the main pack now, 5.0. Dowling, Goulet now, it looks like, all together, and still 7. All closed down. No counterattack, and White just setting a steady high effort at the front now, as you can see. So now down to 3.2, 4.1. They know it's the last lap as they started right here, so it's going to be all about who's got the kick, perhaps up on the top of the climb, or a sprint to the line. That's what it's going to be all about here, I believe, as there is no counter. Still about, I'd say, 12 to 15 minutes of racing to go. Back in with the women, though. Let's go ahead and see how things are going over there, as we do have all together, actually. This is interesting to see. Portela and Barry now still on the front now, on their way down the climb. The attacks aren't too serious. Ayotte here now, as you can see, 2.7 watts per kilogram, a little ways back. Not caught, but definitely under threat, though, with only 29 seconds for Ayotte and Armand now. Chasing that down with Gallagher, who was caught. That was the prediction we made a little bit earlier. So Gallagher, who did fall off the pace from Ayotte, as she did make that attack up over the top of the climb, was caught. Now as a part of group of 3. But the reality of that was that we thought that perhaps being a group of 3, Mond, Gallagher, Q, might be able to close things down because of their concerted effort together. 26 seconds up to the Canadian, trying to hold it down. But look at how quickly that is dropping. 25 seconds. It's going to, I mean, maybe the climb, though, is going to be the equalizer for these ladies. We'll have to see if that does work out for the Canyon SRAM Racing teams. Zwift Academy for the women here. Barry now at the front, 2.8. We haven't seen her in the front end of the race a whole lot, as she just sits in with Portela, as she's been willing to do a lot of the work now. But as they have about a lap and a half to go, Barry looks to be looking for her moment to pounce here, but up into 176 beats per minute. That heart rate has seriously drifted out, actually. It's interesting to see. Now, back in with the men's race, though, the women's has settled down a little bit, but the men's race, we are seeing Matt Johnson full-on attack with an aero power-up from way out, way before the climb, actually. They're about to hit the bridge over here in just a moment, and Johnson, 6.3 watts per kilogram. Aero power-up is popped now, as you can see. LaBelle there, 2 seconds back. Goulet now seeing the threat there, going up in the 6.4 watts per kilogram, as you can see, trying to come on through to close that gap down to Matt Johnson. LaBelle now, it looks like up into the orange number, 9 watts per kilogram, as they're about to take that right-hand turn over toward the bridge. And Dowling now sitting in, White sitting in, actually, no, White off the back by 3 seconds, actually. This is a serious moment for these riders. They're going to have to close this down right now as he's using aero power-up. They saw some weakness. There's somebody in the pack saw that these riders were in a little bit of a trouble with maybe not enough effort to close things down. And yep, that looks exactly what happens as Weeman from ATX now is off the back. White now trying to hang on. It looks like the Windsor's wheel as he's pulling on through at 4.2 watts per kilogram. But it's 4 seconds, and Johnson not slowing down. 5 watts per kilogram, 160 beats per minute. And we said it earlier, he would be one to watch out for in the sprint. But look at this, going for the TT effort solo. Goulet now trying to close it down with LaBelle and Dowling. If they all get together, this will be curtains maybe for Jay White and Find Later from Windsor Door Racing now. And will this stick, though? That is the question. 5.1, 5.3 watts per kilogram, 37 meters. Look at the bottom of the, if you look at the bottom of the screen right here, you can see exactly how many meters, up to 50 meters, you can see how far the gap is and whether or not it's closing down. 5.1, 4.3 watts per kilogram. If we look over the shoulder here, that's all the gap is between Matt Johnson and D. Dowling, who's trying to close down another gap for the second time with his race on the line here. It looks like Dowling now 4.8 watts per kilogram. LaBelle is sitting in. Goulet now trying to bring it back as well. 3 riders working together to bring back the ODZ rider out of the US of A, but it's just stuck here at 4 seconds, 4 seconds, 4 seconds, not going anywhere. And how long, though, can Matt Johnson hold on to this kind of an effort? 4.8 watts per kilogram now currently from him, and these 3 now working together. And we have a prediction here from Carissa saying, well, she's saying gutsy move. David Torellio now saying he won't keep it. We'll have to wait and see. 6 seconds, though, it continues to go out. if the motivation goes out, or the reality of these riders not being able to hold this kind of a power, like what if they just don't have the power to do it? It's a good prediction. I would predict similar, but Matt Johnson now still gaining time though over these riders, and the climb is about to happen. And this is true, Bradley Pete. Matt Johnson, that's why I predicted him for a sprint, because he has got a huge motor. But here's the thing. Is it all wasted? It's before the climb. What if the climbers come out and just go flying by him? He's only got 6 seconds. That's not a whole lot of time the second that they do hit that climb, because it's about distance, and that distance is going to close down very quickly. On the climb, that's more like 1 or 2 seconds. So we'll have to see how this ends up playing out here. Johnson's still holding more watts per kilograms than these other riders, but we'll have to see how this works out. Who's the largest guy in the front runners right now? I would say Andrew Webber. That's a great question, actually, coming on through over at Zwift's Facebook. If we do check ZwiftPower.com, as far as the riders' weights do go, it would be, it looks like Matt Johnson, actually, amongst the riders that are in the front group right now, at a solid around 80 kilograms, I believe. There's also, though, Goulet, though, also sitting in at 80 kilograms as well. They have actually been averaging, Matt Johnson, it looks like, averaging right around 3.7 watts per kilogram. The highest watts per kilogram amongst that group is actually Julian White at about 4.1. But amongst those riders, Goulet as well as Johnson, most likely the sprinters. Interesting to see this. Maybe he didn't think he could hang on, and this is just an early attack here to try and fade climb over the top and not actually get dropped. So looking back, though, Dowling, 7 seconds, they're letting it go. It's still going out. It's almost up to 10 seconds. This is dangerous, as Johnson is able to hold on to about 5.0 watts per kilogram almost. Dowling now 4.5. LaBelle now 4.5 as well. Will they close it down on the climb? The lightest rider among them will be Darren Dowling, 65.8 kilograms as we're seeing in here. He's averaged a solid 4.0. His best for 5 minutes is right around 316 or 4.8 watts per kilogram. Max heart rate for these riders, not sure, that doesn't show actually in the live results. We might be able to bring that in, though, in a little bit here. Matt Johnson, though, here now 528 watts. Gonna have to hold this to the very, very top, over 6 watts per kilogram. We'll have to see if he can do so. There's the gap behind. You can see the riders trying to close it down. They've got 7.6. LaBelle now up into 8 watts per kilogram. He is kind of fade climbing at this point, but can he hold on? Where will there be any kind of continuance over the top from the chase group? He might have a second or two up over the top here. LaBelle, 6.4 watts per kilogram, still trying to close it up, but Matt Johnson able to hold on to 6.6. 3 seconds is the difference. It's 3 seconds, but that's going to go out to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds by the other side here if he has continuance, though. But that's what's going to have to happen. He's going to have to not fade. Now we're seeing 3.5 now. Does Johnson have the effort to hold on to this gap all the way to the line? About a half a lap to go. 4.3 now, as we can see. Dowling 7 seconds back. LaBelle trying to hang on. It's echeloned out. It's straight line, but they are completely in the hurt locker at this point. They would not be sitting in that straight line if they weren't. Now it's starting to calm down. Johnson's able to hold on to 4.3. Only 3.5 from LaBelle. 36 miles per hour from him. Johnson up into 30 miles per hour. He's got another kick on the climb here. 6% gradient. Again, a little bit of a kicker here. They're still chasing him down. It's only 3 riders. If they had one more in there, 4 riders, maybe 5 would make it a little bit easier, but the infighting seems to be happening a little bit, only kicking on the climbs now, and Johnson still has more power, it looks like, as far as watts per kilogram go, out to 6 seconds. He's got a solid 38 miles per hour. Only 35, 36, 37. You can see here from these riders, it's all about speed, and we are seeing 40 now, about the same on each seconds, still holding on to 7 seconds. Now, here's the thing. LaBelle, Dowling, Goulet, are they overworking it? Or, for the sprint, the reality is that if they might be just letting him sit out there and not putting in the work to waste their sprint. Johnson, there's no way he's going to have the sprint that these riders will have. Now, look at this, though. Goulet putting in the effort, 6.2, 6.8 from LaBelle, saying, that's it. I'll do the work. Going to the front now, as you can see here. Dowling sitting in, though, getting the advantage from these riders who are willing to do the work. And Matt Johnson, all of that out the window, as now he's going to be caught. 1 second, though. It's a race of meters. LaBelle pulling right on through. Got the draft from his fellow countrymen. Johnson going to be all about sitting in for Matt from ODZ at this point and waiting for that sprint. It was a valiant effort, but there was a lot of effort wasted out there before the sprint. But perhaps he can rest up just enough to bring it home for ODZ. We'll have to see how it's going. It's USA versus Canada at this point, and Goulet and LaBelle trying to throw down up against Dowling and Matt Johnson. But I'm not sure there's any love lost between the fellow countrymen. I think it's every man for himself out there, as Goulet now takes up the front at 3.0 watts per kilogram. Dowling now 3.4, 169 beats per minute. No heart rate here coming from Goulet, so cannot win officially. LaBelle as well, no heart rate. So it's going to be Johnson and Dowling, actually, the two Americans that can actually take the official win. Matt Johnson sitting at 145 beats per minute. I think this rider has a pretty good fitness level, as that heart rate came flying right on down when it comes to the cardiac drift. That kind of recovery time tells me that this rider is in super fit shape, actually. I mean, like extremely fit. Now, here goes Johnson again, not wanting to sprint, which is interesting. 7.4 watts per kilogram coming from him, as you can see. And LaBelle followed up with 11 watts per kilogram, maybe just trying to loosen up the legs between the riders and force some orange numbers, as you can see here. Now, he does not have an aero power up. Maybe that's why he didn't want it to come down to the aero power up. He does pop the feather now, as we see. Now, Goulet now coming right on through. Dowling popping the feather power. All these feather power ups. Nobody's got an aero, actually. This is going to be interesting. It's going to come down to watts v watts, not the power ups. We're seeing Dowling here, 8.1 watts per kilogram, as you can see. 7.1 now. It's still trying to get away. We predicted it early on that it would be Dowling's show at the end. Matt Johnson off the back, totally burned out. It looks like that was the reality of that attack now, as we are seeing Dowling here, 6.3 watts per kilogram, still trying to get away. Very early sprint coming from him, though. Not perhaps the best tactic. Now on the front, not getting that draft. Needs to save up again, because there's going to be one more kick to the line. They were able to get rid of Matt Johnson, though, because of all of that effort early on. It was a great effort, but ODZ off the back. Now, Goulet, Dowling, LaBelle. Looks like Goulet taking up the front there. 4.0 watts per kilogram toward the front now. There's the finish line. It's within sight. With how close we are, it might just be about who kicks first, though. They went so early. There's an aero power up there from Goulet. I'm predicting Goulet's probably going to take this with that aero power up. It's almost unstoppable. Goulet, 11 watts per kilogram. The response is so late. There's no way they're going to close that down at this point. Out to 1 second, and it is going to be Goulet for the win. No hurry monitor on those, so most likely Dowling for the one that's really going to be able to take it on the official results, but still an amazing sprint there from Goulet. Very well timed across the line there with that aero power up, taking the W. Looking back through the results, though, this looked like it was, I believe, Darren Dowling, followed up by Matt Johnson, interesting, and then Julian White. I believe that's because the other rider coming out of Canada there was not actually registered with ZwiftPower.com and connected through the MyZwift. So if you haven't done so already, make sure to jump on over to my.zwift.com and grab the connection there to opt in for ZwiftPower.com. But it does look like Fred Goulet came through for the win, 49.58, followed up by Darren Dowling, 268, and then Matt Johnson, 20.28, back for third place. All right, that'll be it for the podium for the men. Back in with the women, as the racing is about to be heating up here for the climb in just a moment now. Portela now, as we do. Now we are seeing, though, real quick here. Here's a little bit of a replay coming on through, and it does look like that was the, I believe, the winner that came through there. Not catching exactly. Here's the replay. There's the sprint to the end, and then it was the next two riders that do come across there. So solid effort there from them, as we can see. Back in with the women, though, as we are seeing Portela now kicking up into 8.4 watts per kilogram, 7.5, as you can see. And then it looks like Bering sitting in. Drafting power up, though, interesting, as the rider from Team Draft comes right on by, 5.56 watts per kilogram. Perhaps not quite wanting to drop her off just yet. Actually, nope, she's on attack mode, as we can see here. 7.1 watts per kilogram. Claudia Bering now looking maybe to put the nail in the coffin now. She's been sitting on Portela, that 158, 159. Portela now trying to close that down, as we are seeing. It looks like 1 second gap. Back to Portela, 183 beats per minute. Now up in the 7 watts per kilogram. This is the moment of truth of whether or not Portela can close this down. It doesn't look like that's going to be happening, as she seems to be walking away from the rest of the ladies. Let's go ahead and check on over at ZwiftPower.com. It does look like, from the live results currently, Claudia Bering, Teresa Gallagher, and Ashton Muchler are the only ones that are opted in for ZwiftPower.com. But we can see the average for Claudia has been about 30.3 watts per kilogram throughout the duration of the race. She has opened up a 10-second gap now at this point. Not sure that's going to be coming back. Barry now on the solo TT effort off the front now with only about 5 minutes, I believe, to the finish line. Only 7 seconds, though. Portela still seems more motivated to bring this back as she kicks up in the 5.2 watts per kilogram. 6-second difference now back. A little bit of another kick going to be coming in just a moment as she comes down toward the river. We'll have to see if that gap gets closed down. 162 beats per minute, as you can see. Claudia Behring, we'll have to see. Looking back here, we are seeing, though, Goulet from the men's Zwift Academy over, I think, already across the finish line. But interesting to see Goulet here still, as well as a few other riders. But still back in with the women's race is what we are looking for here out on course. We'll see if we can bring that back in to the feed here. And there we go. We're back in with Behring. 5.0 watts per kilogram, 5.2 now at the front. 7 seconds is the difference. And 424, though, all the way back to the other riders. So these two have really opened up a gap, actually. Now, interesting to see, though, Ayot was caught by Mond, and Mond actually got away from Q as well as Gallagher, who had fallen off the pace there. So as we can see, Mond here 2.9, 4.0 watts per kilogram, and Ayot there 22 seconds back. Q there 127. So these riders who were working together as a chase group, full-on explosion for the group there, and it looks like the riders are now all in no women's land, just trying to hang on for themselves, race the truth against themselves out there in this race. So up toward the front again, though, Behring now 4.7, 4.8 watts per kilogram, as you can see. And Portela there, 11 seconds back. Doesn't look like she's going to be closing anything down anytime soon amongst these riders. So interesting to see that Behring here does have the effort. And it's to be expected. We've seen her down in the 150s, 160s most of the race, now all the way up to that 180 beats per minute. So definitely been saving up for this moment and just walking away with this W. Now, I do know Claudia, she has been in almost every race broadcast, not riding every race broadcast, but she has been, we've been watching her. Or she's been watching just about every single race broadcast. She's been a part of every Zwift Academy, every single one of the Zwift Academy features that we've done on Zwift Community Live. Lots of questions being asked by her, and I am absolutely positive that she is fully motivated to try and take the W out here for the race here, but for the overall pro contract with Canyon SRAM. So I'd be watching out for Claudia Behring as a finalist with the kind of motivation that we've seen from her, as well as the racing we've seen from her in real life, as well as out on Zwift and in some of the Zwift in real life competitions as well. So Claudia still there, 4.4 watts per kilogram, currently up into 185 beats per minute, actually. Well, back down to 179 now. So absolutely killing it here with the power. Opening up an 18-second gap and about to come in toward the finish line. She takes that left-hand turn into the final drag here. Portela now 19 seconds back, also up in the 179 beats per minute. I would say if we look over at ZwiftPower.com, Portela not currently registered actually with ZwiftPower.com, so we cannot see the average wattage, but I would guess that she probably put out a little bit more effort there as far as the tactics of racing than Claudia did out there. Claudia, though, raising their average for sure right now, up to 3.4 watts per kilogram. So definitely putting out a huge effort right now. But now it's starting to back off. We're seeing down to 127 beats per minute or so. So perhaps maybe a little malfunction with the heart rate monitor, actually, though, is what I'm thinking is happening there, as she was definitely up in the 186 or so for quite a while. So I have a feeling that perhaps the heart rate monitor is having a little bit of a moment there. But we are seeing 5.8 watts per kilogram, a little bit of a kick to the line with that aero power up, letting us know who the winner is out there today. So solid effort there for Behring there with that national champion kit on, as you can see, as she does come out of the Canyon SRAM kit that they all use in the races. Portela now about to come across the line at 5.3 watts per kilogram, 180 beats per minute, just a little ways back. She's crossing the line in second place right now. So solid effort there from Portela as she comes across in second. It will be 4 minutes back to third place or so for the women. So we'll have to wait a little bit here to find their position. But that will be first and second place. Now, Portela needs to get opted in with ZwiftPower.com. But if she does do so and everything is all kosher, she'll be able to, if everything's all good as far as her setup goes and all that kind of stuff, assuming that it is, she does have a heart rate monitor on and everything, will be good as far as that goes with her results. But Claudia Behring does take the win today. Solid effort out there from Claudia. And with a solid 3.4 watts per kilogram actually coming from Behring. Now, for the men's results, I'm going to go ahead and chat about those for just a moment as we can go through and talk about the top 10 as they did come on through. So Fred Goulet, it looks like, for the W out there. And then it will be second place, Darren Dowling, followed up by Matt Johnson. And then Julian White, Sam Findlater for Windsor Door Racing, as well as Parker Norman. And then we are seeing Taylor Zwift out there, Billy Wilson, Royusuk Baba, and then it will be Matthew Keffer for your top 10. Matt Johnson, shout out to him as most aggressive rider as he took a flyer for sure out there. That's a call out just from Nathan, nothing official, but really aggressive racing out there from Matt Johnson, but Fred Goulet able to walk away with it for the provisional results. Make sure to head over to ZwiftPower.com for any more information about the results as it does come on in. Quick little replay here, though. There's Johnson. I would call him the most aggressive rider there coming on through. 4.0 watts per kilogram as we do see. We did see, though, 6.6 all the way to the top of that climb, but here's Dowling on the attack early on, way out from the finish line, but it wasn't going to happen as Goulet, as we can see, with the aero power up and about 1,000 watts for his kick. There's the chase from the other two riders coming across the line, and that is how it played out there. So solid effort there from the all of the men in the Team Dimension Data Zwift Academy circuit race out there today. Always great to see them out there. Here is the results again. Fred Goulet, Darren Dowling, Matt Johnson, Julian White, and Sam Findlater for the top 5. Parker Norman, Taylor Zwift, Billy Wilson, Suk Baba, and Matthew Keffer. All well over 200 watts, it looks like. 314 for Goulet. And then it looked like a little over 300, I believe, there as well for Matt Johnson. Yeah, 307. So the heavier riders obviously putting out a lot more watts to match it there to carry it up over the top of those climbs. So been some solid racing out there for the there was some solid racing all around for the men. We're going to be jumping into some replays though here for the women. Here's Claudia Behring, Gallagher early on in the racing, only 4.3 kilometers in. As you can see, Portela there 4.0 watts per kilogram on the front, always taking the headwind, it looked like. Athens here was an early part of the race, but I was able to hang on all the way through. And then we've got Behring here when she was on the wheel all the way through the race pretty much of Portela, waiting to pounce for those last moments. And here it is, those last moments of the race when she did make the attack. Behring there, 6.6 watts per kilogram on the front, all the way up in the 7 for a moment. This is when she got that gap. Opened it all the way up to about 20 plus seconds. TT'd it to the line. So Claudia Behring, national champion out of US of A, out on Zwift, showing that she is the real deal when it comes to the women's Cannon Shrim Zwift Academy, looking for that pro contract. So look at the setup there too. She's got the Canyon Shrim kit, full kit going on there. Absolutely loving it. It looks like she's got the Zip 808s on. And the bike I think that she was using out there today was, I believe, is that a Trek? I'm not positive which bike she's actually on there. And I'm wondering if Draft actually has a official setup too. It's looking like out there. But Claudia, absolutely killing it. And there's the aero power up. She gives it up a kick into the orange numbers for a moment and shows us how it's done, even for the sprint. If it came down the sprint, I would definitely rolled the dice on Claudia as well to take the W because she's got a killer sprint. Well, that's it for us today. That is the Zwift Academy race for the circuit race. If you are looking to complete your Zwift Academy races, still, you got to do 2 of them. And is the circuit race, the TT, or the climb race. You can do any 3 of those to show off your talents. Again, this is all about one rider, one pro contract for the men's and the women's Zwift Academy with Team Dimension Data or Cam and Shram, respectively. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in out there. All the viewers, we are live. Every time we are live, we are either on Zwift's Facebook or Zwift Community Live's Facebook. Hit the follow button or like button over there. Or you can get direct notifications to your email or your apps on Twitch, Mixer, or YouTube. All our VODs, of course, always over on YouTube. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Great job to all the riders. And as always, ride on.